Well,
Okay.
Bill, maybe you need to start thinking about having more kids.
You're listening to the Foundry Talk podcast with your hosts, Nate McClain and Perry Merritt. Take it away, boys.
Welcome back. My name is Perry. With me, as always, is my partner, Nate. You are on, I have no idea what episode of Foundry Talk this is, so we're not even going to guess. Today, we have with us Bill Crouse, owner, operator, chief bottle washer, everything at Protech Pattern in Wisconsin. And we're excited to talk to Bill about his company, what he's offering, and especially how he's operating with a small company in today's environment. So, Bill, welcome, and tell us a little bit about Protech Pattern.
Well, thanks so much for having me on here. Protech Pattern started in 1996. I was working for some family-owned pattern shops in Wisconsin here, and I just decided to start freelancing on my own, doing some CAD work and some tooling design for some local foundries, as well as doing some CAM programming for some larger machine shops in town that I had relationships with that were actually some of my former employers, I mean. And so I was able to keep that relationship with them and do some of that. And it just continued to grow and advance. And it always had the dream of opening a pattern shop and becoming, that's every person's dream, is to become an entrepreneur. And so just keeping that focus, and it came to a head in 2018 finally. Was that my kids were all grown, and the economy was good. The foundry business was great. And it was an opportune time to take that opportunity to fulfill a dream.
So you've been had this business for 30 years. Is that what I heard?
April 1st of 91, I started at a pattern shop in Appleton area, Appleton, Wisconsin. Started on April Fools.
Oh.
I should have known right then and there that there was something wrong.
Well, you could always have used that as an excuse if it didn't work out. It was just an April Fool's joke.
No, and still to this day, I have great relationships with the owners there that have initially taught me the trade, and they're some of the best in the industry, and so I'm very grateful to have them as my peers and to learn behind them. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. The
Yep.
now, so you operate your foundry, your pattern shop in the rural Wisconsin, right? So you've lived in the same location for quite some time. So are there a lot of foundries right by you where you live, or how does that work? Do you have to commute a long ways, or?
That's one good thing about the Midwest, and particularly in Wisconsin as a whole, because we're centered in between Wapaka Foundry and Grady Foundry and Neenah Foundry. And the Midwest is loaded with iron foundries and aluminum too. So there's definitely an abundance of work that's right around here. Things that are fitting. There's even many air set foundries that um, are local here. So I mean, it has tons of opportunity for people that you're even looking to start a new business. That's Wisconsin's a great place for that. Me personally, for working, Protech Pattern is located 18 miles west of Green Bay. So I worked down in that like 40-minute commute one way while working in the industry, and I worked at 3 different pattern shops over the course of 24 years, and they are all captive pretty much to Wapaka and Grady and Neenah Foundry. So a lot of commuting, but I live out in the country, I enjoy that part of it, and was capable of building. I have some real estate here. I was capable of building a shop right next to my home, and that's where Protech Pattern currently resides. It's 10 feet from my house.
Is that good or bad being that located that close to the shop?
Both, both.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, it's a little bit difficult to separate work from home because you have this feeling that you need to be out working all the time. But some of that comes from right here. So if it's something that you enjoy, that's great. And having spent 24 years traveling 40 minutes one way, I've had my share of windshield time. So this is the good Lord's way of giving that back.
Yeah, my daughter
yeah. No, that's
my daughter just started a new job, her first work from home job. And I was talking to her last night and I asked her how that was going. And she says, well, I'm forcing myself to get up and get dressed and get my makeup on and all this stuff to sort of separate my home and work life because she's just working inside her house.
yeah.
And she's having to do that. I told her when I was working from home, well, I'd be sitting here in my underwear eating pizza and I was the worst employee ever. But I think you have to have a certain amount of discipline to keep at things. And of course, owning the business probably helps a lot. But I noticed on your contact page that your contact hours are 6:30 in the morning to 7 at night or something like that. That's a long day.
That's a pretty common day here. Nate can vouch for that. Things that we really enjoy is um, during the course of the tooling builds that we do here. If we get linked up either just through a text message or Snapchatting, so you get the opportunity to see your tools being built in process and getting ready for lights out machining every night, assemblies. Some of that is nice too because we might run into, rather than having to go through endless emails, we can do questions right via Snapchat, and if there would be any midstream corrections or maybe a brain fart that might happen, like, hey, maybe we should do this, and we do that adaptively, right? So that's a fun part of it. We really enjoy doing that. And there's many nights I'm out here till 10 o'clock midnight. It's I'm addicted. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, it's a good addiction to have, but again, being able to separate it, it does make it difficult for sure. But I think that's part of being an entrepreneur and being the size that you are more than anything. Not just that, but when you got a team around you and that sort of thing, it makes it a little easier when certain people have certain projects that they're working on, and then you're overseeing it. But again, there's nothing wrong with being a one or two man shop and being able to focus on that. You can certainly dial in for those customers' needs, and you can react way faster than, let's say, a bigger, somebody that has 50-man shop. A lot of times, they've got their processes and the things going through there. It's really difficult for somebody to throw something into the works, and next thing you know, hey, I need something yesterday. You have done. Uh, we've had a conversation in the past, and kudos to you, where we've actually had a conversation and the pattern has actually shown up. Granted, it was a simple pattern, but still, for somebody to interrupt what they're doing and run it at the same time you're running another job, we received it within 5 days, and we shipped castings to the customer within 8 or 9 days. So I mean, it's pretty tremendous, especially when we can marry 3D printed cores for difficult, let's say impellers or things of that nature, and then a simple pattern, two-on pattern, that sort of thing to knock it out. It makes a huge difference. So that type of service is the niche that you fill for a lot of people. Not just that, but the expertise that you bring along too as well. I can speak to that because I've dealt with that. Same thing with lots of other pattern shops I've dealt with. I mean, pattern makers, they have a mindset of being problem solvers, and they can look at stuff in ways that other I know people in the foundry industry that have been doing it for 3 or 4 decades, and they couldn't make a pattern if they wanted to. They could talk to you about it intelligently, but they could never go and program it, machine it, or go to the bench and build it. It just wouldn't happen. They'll tell you they could, but give them a drawing and say, hey, make this pattern tooling so we can make this casting. It better be a really simple part for them to be able to do that. If it was any complex cores or dimensions that need to stack and stack tolerances and all that sort of stuff, no, they're out. They're going to look at you like a deer in the headlights. So it definitely makes a big difference.
There's much truth to that because many of my colleagues along the way, um, being in it prior to me, and even like in the early 90s when CAD was just becoming a thing, everything was, we used to run Charnois milling machines, or actually a German milling machine, and their interface understood trigonomic equation. So we would actually take customer prints and sit there and make trig problems all day to make the 3D shapes, and that was a lot of fun. But there's guys along the way that never could adapt to that, but they were great at rigging core boxes and polishing, and so that's what it takes. Takes team on anything to produce. So
Sure.
not everybody advances within the industry, and that all becomes down to a willingness of want. You got to want it, and some people are okay with.
Yeah, and one attribute that you'll find is, and I run into it and I see it a lot because I saw it in myself and I did it myself when I was started off in back in 95, 94 when I graduated from high school was, you know, typically the character traits that you want to look for a lot of times are the guys that have a problem or they have a lack of skill in a certain area, especially when it comes to foundry related stuff, pattern shop, things of that nature, or even just out in the foundry itself, core making and molding, that sort of thing. But they'll have a problem and they won't know the answer to it. So therefore they go home and they figure it out on their own time. Those are the guys that really make a difference. They learn to use solid modeling and that sort of thing. And there's no excuses today. When you got YouTube, you've got Autodesk, Fusion 360, you've got SolidWorks even has a maker license. One of my brothers was telling me, he's a machinist in Tonkwall, Oklahoma. He was telling me, he's like, man, did you guys know that it's on a chat group with my other brothers. There's like, do you guys realize that SolidWorks has a maker license? It's like $25 a year. And I was like, what? You're crazy. They do not. And pulled it up. Sure enough, there's a code you can use, $25 a year, and you can get in there. Of course, it's got some limitations and things of that nature, but at least it lets people get their feet wet. And if anybody that's in the foundry or anything like that, and they want to learn, there is zero excuses why you can't make some things happen and go home and figure out things and make things happen. The advent of these 3D printers and that stuff like that, they're so inexpensive. There's zero excuses why people can't learn some of these skills at home on their own time. And if they're doing it on their own time, guess what? Those are probably the guys you want to have on your team for sure. Um, Not to say that 100% of your day after you leave work is work or anything like that, but typically what you want is you want to have people that are actually wanting to better themselves day after day after day and learn things and be inquisitive about it, asking the right questions. They're like, man, I love helping people like that really they want to know and they want to learn. Man, because I can remember asking questions and having the old school guys, they wouldn't know a lot of times. You'd ask them questions about why do we do certain things in the plant when we're running the cupola and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of times it's just like monkey see, monkey do. There was really no explanation of we do what we do because of X. It was just like, kid, that's what we've always done. Just do it that way and shut up. And you go on, just, okay, no problem. But then you get to working on it, you'd figure it out. It's like, wait, and then you would discover why we did what we did. It made a huge difference. And wanting to, and explaining that to other people, it makes it's great when you see that light bulb going off in people's heads. And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. There's other people that does, and they're geniuses. They're great at it. But yeah, no, that's great.
It's important to help colleagues. People get a little bit tentative, and it's not that they don't want to learn. They're scared of it per se, and sometimes it just takes us as individuals to help them, grab them by the hand and say, come on, let's go sit down and let's go learn this. And they will if they have guidance. And so
Sure.
that makes everybody better as a whole.
Absolutely. It makes us better. I mean, it keeps us sharp, the ones that actually know what's going on and that sort of thing. So, I mean, or have learned it through the school of hard knocks, for Pete's sake, making a lot of mistakes. I made my share of mistakes big time. So a lot of times you know what not to do. So
Yep.
yeah, and then you discover, why we do what we do. And then, like we talked about, Foundry 101 and the things of that nature, just the simple things that make the business work much better. Core fit, and you got to have a draft on this, and don't make a core, anything that's bigger than the diameter. You don't want to exceed a certain amount of height. All those stupid little trade secrets and tribal knowledge that you learn over time, the feeds and speeds. I mean, you have that all memorized. I mean, it's just second hat for you. But a lot of the younger guys, they don't understand all that.
Just the progression of the trade. When you first get into the trade, you start out on the bench and you're polishing patterns and doing some rigging aspects of it, and you learn that, and you're maybe that maybe you couldn't exactly pick a corner down with a cutter to get that sharp, so there's reduces the flashing from the core to the parting line, so you had to grind that with a die grinder. Well, so you work that on the bench and you understand that part of it, and you understand what it took that the machinist couldn't do that, to get that down. So you learn that responsibility, and pretty soon you advanced from that, and you start doing some machine setup and CNC work, and then develop into the CAM programming aspect of it. So you start taking in all that. Then when you become a tool pattern, you learn the nuances of and all the tricks to that, and cutter vibration, and sometimes when you're cutting with 8 and 10 inch long carbide cutters, so that the speedings and feeds that you just discussed, Nate, that there's a lot to all that, and the finishes that provided. So now you were just on the guy on the bench having to polish out these terrible
Yeah,
finishes because the guy had his spindle speeds way too high,
yeah,
and so that makes you better when you get to be to the programmer, because well, I'm not going to have them finishes to be like that, because I don't want to be the guy on the bench spending 3 hours polishing my workout. And
yeah,
then you understand, and then that just develops into ultimately what I most would consider to be the plateau of the industry, and that's becoming the CAD designer and designing the tooling. So through the polishing, and then you get into the rigging with the injection systems and things like that, and you along the way get the understanding of the core fits and things of that nature, and that ultimately you gather all that information together, and that's when you hit the tooling designing plateau, because you've taken in all that information over the years to earn that. and
sure.
and then that once you get there, it's fun, because now when you are the tooling designer and you've spent the last 15 years honing all them skills along the way, you now have just made that job that much easier for everybody down the way. And so,
Yep.
and ultimately, and the foundries are happy for that, because they spend less time in the grinding room.
Yeah, for sure. That cutting that labor is it's exponential in the foundry business for sure. And people take it for granted a lot of times, so without a doubt.
So I'm curious about a couple things, Bill. I know that Nate mentioned earlier, just kind of learning by the school of hard knocks. But as you started off making patterns, did you actually make molds to see how your patterns reacted in the molding material, or did you just start off as a pattern maker and had guys tell you this worked or didn't work?
Some at two of the pattern shops that I worked at, we actually, if I'm understanding it correctly, so before we would ever, everything had CMM. I mean, these are 100-man pattern shops in the Appleton area that are captive to WAPAC and that. So they're got huge layout departments, but even still, through the processing, we would actually, um, they had a small sand muller, and we would pack up the patterns and then take a single cavity of the core box if it was multi and plug off all the vents and the ejection and pour a repro plug and just check the core fit into the sand mold prior to it ever going to the foundry. So things like that were common occurrences. I think that's what you were touching on there, Perry.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know that when I started making my own patterns, um, I learned a lot because I'd put them in the sand and I couldn't get them to pull or something, and you start figuring out, oh, I've got to do stuff here to make this work. So I just wondered if it was more of a hands-on, put it in the sand and see what comes out. Uh, I'm also curious. I mean, you've been around for a little while. Um, how have you seen the pattern business, the pattern industry change over the course of the years?
The CAD through CAD it's been amazing that the advancements with that come, but now with the 3D printing along the way and not so much no more CMM layout when it coming to inspecting tools in the days that it takes some time depending on the complexity of the tool that would take the layout department days to do the quality assurance part of it. And now with the laser scanning and the ease and the speed of that is just light years compared to what it was even 10 years ago has drastically improved the industry and the companies that are producing the tooling that's making their lives easier. It comes at an exponential cost, unfortunately, but the cost savings there far outweighs what it costs to obtain the scanner or even a lot of companies out there are even doing some EDMing rather than having the guys on the bench grind the corners. They'll actually cut a carbon electrode and stick it in the sinker and burn the corner perfectly sharp, and that flashes. There is none. It's perfect. So there's you see that a lot. I mean, in the bigger industry, the bigger companies will do that. Not so much the smaller ones because they won't have the capital to buy a sinker to do stuff like that. So that part of it's definitely greatly enhanced the industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because in pattern shops, I never saw an EDM. I mean, and we knew about it, but never used one at all. So that's pretty cool.
What have you? I noticed on your website that, and maybe I'm going to open up a can of worms here, but I don't know. You've got a lot of machinery at your shop. It looks like. Um, how did that all come about? Was that a major acquisition at the beginning, or did you guys sort of start building this kind of pattern? No, we could use that tool, and 5 years, 2 or 3 years later, maybe you got another tool. And was it all kind of an organic growth that you guys did for your business?
We have. I started out. I got a small Haas. It's a TM3P. It was new in 2018, and that's 20 by 40 by 16. It was an economical way to get started, and it had a little bit bigger footprint. 20 by 40 is not small, but it ain't huge by any means. But it was fitting for a good start to reach out to some people that and just get a good start with a sewing machine that was new, not old. And then in 2022, we bought our second machining center, brand new Miltronics RH33. That has 33 on the Y, 78 on the X, and 28 on the Z. Nice machine. It's an open bed mill, touchscreen display, 25 horse spindle. It's been real nice acquisition, and we just keep plugging away. We added I found a kitty radial arm drill press from Tool and Die Company down in Milwaukee that unfortunately went out of business when Tecumseh closed down. Had all their eggs in Tecumseh, and that unfortunately put them out. So it was capable of getting a nice big heavy radial arm drill press for doing side work and injection systems, and so that's good there. We just keep plugging along and adding things along the way. Some additive manufacturing just the other day here with some 3D printing. Over the summer, K-Scan Magic 1 scanner we just added, so make our quality assurance level to be what I consider to be bar none or right up there with some of the best in the industry. So and it takes capital and time, so we keep baby stepping it, but we keep trying to advance every day with things. And for our air set molding, we um, got a nice Delta saw for doing all our wood stuff that we gotta do here. So not big by any means, but keep adding.
Yeah. So I mean, when you bring on a project or you start doing a project, I mean, what does that typically look like? I mean, in today's world, I mean, are you guys collaborating with them? I know you had mentioned before we started recording, you know, Snapchat and some other things, but are you guys jumping on Teams meetings with them, showing them, uh, you know, solid models and layouts and that sort of thing, or what's the process for starting that, or some sort of a concept to deliver them a finished pattern and core box?
At the time of quote, uh, um, I do from my own well being. So a lot of times, many of the customer base that we have here doesn't know how many patterns will actually fit on a 1620 or a 2024. So they rely on us to tell them what that is. So I'll quickly take the CAD model in if there's one and throw it on the plate and make a quick plate layout and just make a wireframe of the gating, then supply that to them just via some screenshots so they can see that. I'll return the quote back and provide them with that simple plate layout so they know and can see what that is, and that gives them the ability to have that for their casting quotes, or maybe at that quick time they can say, well, Bill, you know, that's a little bit too tight, or maybe we can get one more in there if we do this. So there's a lot of collaboration that can be done there with that quick layout, and that we provide all our customers with that. And if it comes, there's a lot of times where customers will have questions on castings, and maybe they can't see how to core it or have questions. So we'll jump on a Teams meeting and discuss just how we can get that to be a pattern tool and the most efficient way to get it casted. So ultimately, it's saving time and money, and the end user, it's saving them on their casting price.
Okay. So are you only doing you know, automatic molding machine or and no bake type pattern tooling work, or do you do any other type of work?
Opposed to anything. If companies are willing to work with us, we're willing to work with them. Permanent mold. Um, the background over the last 34 years, I've always been intrigued by investment casting. I just have never worked at a facility that had a customer base with that. So that's always been very intriguing. So having the having companies with the willingness to be able to work with us on that would be very exciting to say the least. But currently, no investment casting. Definitely a lot of permanent mold over the years, and while working within the industry. So definitely had plenty of that. I do some. I have one customer that is does permanent molding, and I get a couple tools a year from them. So we don't do a lot of it, but definitely open to it. And we do plenty of ejection system hot boxes, double single-sided ejection systems, fully DME rigged, invented tooling, um, things of that nature. But you keep pushing away, keep pushing at it. Hopefully, we can obtain some large foundries that are around me here that are ice secure based, lampy, and try to hopefully get their business here. We've been trying with not much success to this point, but we'll keep at it. We'll get it.
Well, from looking at your website and the things that you post on LinkedIn, I mean, the skill is certainly there. So maybe it's just getting in front of the right people because when you're dealing with permanent mold type technology, I mean, it's that stuff has to be perfect. The surface finishes have to be outstanding, or that casting's going to have a hard time getting ejected out of that die. That's it's not the same as sand shearing off or something like that. If there's a little bit of an undercut or a rough surface or something like that, it's obviously that's going to make for a rough casting, but it's just not the case with permanent mold. I wouldn't think.
And two things that come into play in that in particular that you actually touched on before, Dave, was it's the surface finishes coming off of the machine, and they can be near impeccable if you take the right approach at it. And if there's any small imperfections still at that point, they're easily done on the bench. And that's something I really take a lot of pride in. I love polishing. So I typically don't run into issues with that. Mm, right?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with that, are you introducing any type of water jackets or cooling systems or anything like that in some of those permanent mold dies? Or well, again, I guess since you haven't done much or any investment dies, then that wouldn't be the case. But permanent mold, I would think there would be some sort of water cooling in there.
Yes, a lot of them do. Uh, the ones that I've produced for my customer do not have them, but you do definitely do see the water cooling systems in permanent mold. That's very popular. Um,
Okay. Now, they don't run into the ones you've done in the past. I mean, they don't run into any moisture or condensation issues or anything like that, or the water's
and
not
this
just like ice cold.
no, but this particular customer is they have two hall tilt pour machines, and some of the cavities that I did were 5 inches deep, tiny rings with full DME injections in them, and they didn't have any cooling next to there, and they come right out of 1 degree walls, and
Really?
yep, and it was
So what? Just for the people that don't know, what is DME?
that's a hardened ejection system pins.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, they're hardened tool steel ejection pins.
Okay. And that as once the metal is in there, then there's ejection pit. Certain amount of time. I'm assuming there's a timer, and then it just indexes up and pushes the part out so it can be extracted and ran again.
Yep. So the ejection system is actually has the ejection plate itself will actually have four return pins on it. They could be in the form of a half-inch cap screw or an actual hardened DME pin itself that comes up to the parting line of the box in the four corners. And then it could be just a single-sided eject or a double-sided either, but when the two halves of the core box come back together to close for the pouring position, the parting lines respectively on each half of the box push the ejection system back closed or in the pour position. Typically, DME pins will have a 5 thousandths on the diameter clearance on there, so no molten aluminum will get by that and cause any sticking to go on there. Even you see that very quite a bit in the shell cores that get tiny cavities like tombstones for transmission systems and things of that nature. Like Grady does a lot of valve bodies for Allison transmissions, and them are little tiny, 2 inches deep by 1/8 inch wide pockets for the valve bodies, and the cores will snap off if they don't have the ejection assist to it. So them are very, very labor intensive molds. A lot of fun.
Okay. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, some of them I've seen pictures of that you've posted. It's just I've been like, holy moly, that is just impressive. Some of them look like a science experiment to me. So, do you can you think of anyone? I'm trying to put you on the spot. Actually, can you think of any? What is one of your most challenging tools that you've ever done? Pattern or core boxes, or maybe it's a hybrid situation where it's an old pattern, but you're needing to rebuild a new core box, so you have to scan or measure and that sort of thing of an old pattern that they don't want to replace.
Well, always, it's never any form of fun when you have to take this old wood pattern tool and try to make adjustments to it, and the thing's all cracked up, and then they want this and that done to it. So to try to come to a happy medium and what you would call a creative blend back to what's already established there, that seem to be the most trying, because working with anything new is always streamlines it, and working with stuff that doesn't have any CAD data seems to always take more time. There's a lot more layout to it, and the development of the CAD data to off the old tool. So that's always seems to be maybe the most challenging.
Okay. So is your 3D scanner, I mean, that you've added on recently, is that helping in some of those
Oh my
situations where you
God,
can capture that data?
it's amazing. It's a blessing for sure.
Okay.
Been talking about that for the better part of 3 years of wanting it, and it's finally came to fruition, and we were able to add that on. It's been brought our quality control to a different level, and the reverse engineering's and the ease of it's been amazing.
Okay. That's outstanding. Yeah, I know that with the hexagon roamer arms that we have at KN. I mean, it's amazing the things that our engineer Travis that they're able to do with those. I would love to see us get an upgrade and get scanning technology on the ferro arm or roamer arm. I think it would be a time saver, but we have internal conversations about that. It's like, oh well, that I can do it faster by probing and that sort of thing. So it's always one of those things, Chevy Ford type conversations. People like a certain brand, or they like this technology or that technology. I think a lot of times it's just what we're all comfortable with. I know that's for me as well. So I think that's great that you guys are adapting and bringing on new technologies as you go and keep reinvesting in Protech pattern. I think it's a huge thing for sure. The good pattern shops and the good businesses that are out there, they do exactly that. They reinvest in their company.
It's also allowed us to gain some trust in with some foundries that wouldn't typically maybe per se uh, give the small guy a chance because they need to have these certain capabilities to their company in order for them to produce them for them, and so that's definitely opened up some avenues there for sure. So
Now,
it,
Perry,
it's
so some of the pattern tooling that you've done yourself in house at your house, hobbyist level, that sort of thing, using Fusion 360 and 3D printers and that sort of stuff. I mean, are there any challenges or things that you had to learn over the time of doing that would be inquisitive for Bill?
So, yeah, first of all, I'm not smart enough to use Fusion 360, so I have to use dumber tools. But
What do you use?
I use a product thing called Design Spark Mechanical.
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, I just could not figure out Fusion. I had a friend who did SolidWorks for, I don't know, 130 years or something as a mechanical engineers. And he said, I'm going to learn Fusion work. I'm going to learn Fusion 360 over the summer. And he came back at the end of the summer and he told me, I can't use it. I don't know how to, I still can't figure this thing out. And he'd been doing SolidWorks forever.
What?
Yeah. He's just like, this is, anyway, I see guys on YouTube
So-
doing SolidWorks all the time, or Fusion. I was like, well, I guess I'm in the bottom
So I
end
will
of
say
the
this.
intelligent pool, but
So shout no, it is, there is a learning curve to it, but what I will say is a shout out to there's a guy, his YouTube channel is Top Tech Boy, and toptechboy.com, and he was a high school teacher, and he taught electronics and computer programming, all that sort of stuff. He's got a series on there, and I think it's 5 or 6 years old now, so I'm sure that Fusion is, well, not sure, I know that it's changed since then, but it's worth going through. It's Learn Fusion 360 or Die Trying. It's I think like a 10 episode series. It is outstanding. He is just a great teacher. It's worth.
I have to check it out then, because yeah, I wouldn't do it. But to your original question, what do I figure out? Well, the biggest thing for me is finish. You can print a pattern, but dealing with the layers is a pain. And then typically the top surface has got to be finished up too. So I can design and print a pattern in no time, and then I spend all my time cleaning it up so I can actually use it.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, so would be the biggest question for if I was going to ask Bill something. How do you deal with your plastic patterns to get them, your 3D printed patterns, to get them so that they're actually usable?
We just got into the 3D printing, so we still to this day have not printed pattern tooling. So everything to this point is 100% CNC. And so that either out of redboard or aluminum or iron, steel. So it's I don't have to face the adversity of maybe polishing or having that post processing to our pattern tooling just yet. But there's a lot of cost. There's a lot of cost savings to 3D printed stuff. So we're excited to get to that point.
Yeah. So now you guys use 3D printed stuff. I know at a different place you use 3D printed. I assume you're doing 3D printing now, or are you guys?
Absolutely.
What do you do for
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
What do you do to finish these patterns? Because those layers are killer, especially in sand.
So again, I don't worry about how long it takes for that 3D printer to run typically, because it'll run 24 hours a day. So we go home and that rascal they just keep running. So I try to make my layer heights as fine and high of a definition as I possibly can, so that we have less post processing. And it really depends on the geometry of the part. We will sometimes use much larger layer heights. A 0.1 millimeter layer height for us is pretty standard. Sometimes we'll go much less than that so that it's really fine, so we have less, especially if there's a large curve to it or something like that, and you start really get those big scallop steps on there, you got to do something about that. So therefore, a lot of times we'll use extra layer heights, because less post-processing, guess what, is cheaper than letting that printer run, because it's just going to run over there. I don't have to pay an hourly wage for that guy, or labor for that. But the one thing that we do whenever we do run into issues with those layer heights getting stacked is, there's one product, and I'll share the product with you, and maybe you can put it on the description or whatever. There's only one product that I've found that really works really well. There's other products that work, but it's a Rust-Oleum product. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say Rust-Oleum, but anyway, it's a high fill primer, and usually I get it at a AutoZone or a body repair place or someplace like that. And you use that high fill product, and it really fills those cracks and those layers heights. It fills them in. It allows it to dry relatively quickly, and you need to knock it down with some fine sandpaper, and you'd be surprised how quick that they will actually finish in that regard. And then you can paint them whatever color you want, everything else. So that's the for me, that's the thing that works the best for me, and that's speaking from experience of actually post-processing 3D prints. More so, I'd usually anybody time it's a core box because it's internal. It's more of a pain in the butt to actually finish those. So therefore, I'll even let those take even longer to print.
Yeah. Yep.
But patterns, since it's on the outside, you can clean them up a lot, so you can get by with a little bit higher, quicker print. So I mean, if you're printing something at 0.1 millimeter layer heights, and it's going to take you 24 hours, and you decrease that to 0.05 or something else, 0.08, 0.07, it's gonna jump exponentially. I mean, it's kind of linear. I mean, if you go from 0.1 millimeter down to 0.05 millimeter, it's going to double the time. It's going to take 48 hours to print. So, I mean, if it's just printing over the weekend and you're not going to be there anyway, let it print. The only really caveat to that you got to remember is I don't care if it's a $300 printer or if it's a $30,000 printer. These printers today, they don't have the technology that it knows. They do have filament runout sensors, so that if the filament runs out, it'll pause. And they do have sensors on them that if the power glitches, that it will pause. So then you could pick back up where you're at. The one thing that they don't have, and they need to fix it, and I think we've touched on this in the past, is they don't have a sensor that actually knows that if there's any material coming out of that nozzle to be printing, that it can still be going through the motions in X and Y and the table dropping in Z or the part moving up in Z, but it doesn't have a sensor to know that there's anything dispensing out of that nozzle. So until they can really get something or a camera or something that sees that as layer heights, sometimes you'll come back and you'll have a gap and it's just printing air.
Mm.
Those are some of the most frustrating prints on the planet, especially if it's a multi-day or 48-hour print, or even if it's a 12-hour print. You're coming in overnight and you're coming back the next day for work, and the dang thing's printing air. That just pisses you off. So that part of 3D printing is pretty irritating. But other than that, most of these printers today, even the hobbyist level printers, they're pretty outstanding for quality. Every printer, I don't care what anybody says, they all have a personality. You'll get one. Tom and Jerry, for example, they were Race 3D printers at D in Houston. Tom would print great, and then Jerry would just be on the fritz. It would just drive you crazy. Then you'd get Jerry running fine, and Tom would start acting silly. So anyway, you just got to figure out what the piece of equipment's going to do and use it accordingly. So you just can't let yourself get frustrated with the technology, because it's equipment. So you got to maintain it. You got to grease the rails. There's all those things you need to do. You need to baby it. So, but as far as post processing, Rust-Oleum high fill primer, and like I said, I'll share that exactly the right one with you with the SKU and everything. And you can
Yeah,
it
it's called
great.
filler primer or filler primer, I think is what it's called. I use it. That's what I use
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, and you're doing it right. Yep, that's what I use.
But
It's on the pattern itself you're talking.
yeah, you paint the pattern with this stuff, and it fills in those print lines.
Yep.
And it may take a couple of coats to do it, but it's easy to sand and easy to clean up. And nice thing for me is it creates a nice little fillet if you spray a lot in there. It creates a natural fillet at the bottom of the mold for release.
That's
right.
much like foam patterns. So like CA Lawton Company in De Pere, they're close to me, and I worked there for several years. They do a lot of one-off huge castings. So they got two big CNC rotors there. They'll cut it out of foam. And then, there's a little bit of tear up from there, and it's not perfectly smooth. So they actually just take drywall compound and go around the whole pattern, and that gets hard. And then they paint it. They give it a coat of paint and send it to sand.
Yep.
So they're actually using styrofoam, like for the pattern itself.
Yep.
Now, are they doing lost foam where they're actually burning it out as they pour, or they burn it out after they use hard no bake?
They do both. They do lost foam there, and they, depending on if they do a lot of gear blank rings. They're big, 6-8 feet in diameter, even bigger than that. So they're capable of taking and using that foam pattern multiple times, 6 times maybe. Before it fails, And so
okay. That's pretty cool. I wonder what density foam that they use for that. Because a lot of the lost foam guys, they're using like
I want to see
1 or 2 pound foam.
Yeah, no, this is more dense than that.
Okay.
I don't recall right off the top of my head poundage of it. They get it by the
Cool.
semi load, so different.
Okay. Yeah. So
Pretty cool.
and they're fully machining them. They don't have the expanding molded and that sort of thing that actually makes the actual shape itself. They're actually machining it from the foam.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So Billy, you're doing everything CNC now. It sounds like. Are you planning on going 3D printed, or you bought it just to see?
Well, to create some efficiencies for ourselves, like the gating in particular. Right now, our current process here, I'll go out to the rack and grab some breadboard and you got to do the backside programs. I have some custom fixture plates that I've made for holding on for machining things, and they work awesome. But the little bit of time that it takes to go cut something out of the rack and then put it in a vise and do flatten it off and put the bolt and pins in it, so then bolt it onto the fixture plate to machine it. That guy might have an hour and a half or something, 2 hours built into doing that. Where just to take that out of the equation and just have everything printed to create that efficiency there and freeing up the machining centers for the tooling, and the gating can be printed. Yes. It, and it can have 8 thousandths layer heights on gator, and you're going to paint it anyway. And if it requires a little bit of sanding, it's not that big a deal. It's a huge cost savings there. So we're finally
Yeah, the
getting
material is dirt cheap. So
our feet wet there.
yeah, I think you'll like it for sure, without a doubt. Yeah, most foundries that don't have 3D printers in house, it just kind of still makes me just scratch my head and go, why is this not the case? I mean, because once we got one, we had three. I mean, it was just unbelievable. You were always doing something.
I have a little bit of mixed feelings on that because the redboard gating, when it comes out of the machining center, I don't even have to sand it. It's like glass, and it snaps right in place perfectly, and so
Hmm.
even with the small layer ice like 0.2 millimeter, that's that's pretty fine, and there's really not post processing to happen at a 0.2 millimeter. You can pretty much paint it. So I do have two customer base that provide us with the printed gating, and sometimes it comes in real super nice, and all we got to do is apply it to the pattern and put some paint on it prior to that. But sometimes it comes
Right.
in and they're probably like everything, they're crunched for time or trying to save a little bit of time. So rather than having a 2 millimeter layer height, they got a 0.4 millimeter layer height, and that has some effect on the finish. And so that'll require us to maybe have a little bit of post processing time, not a lot, a little bit, but it's all part of it.
Yeah.
Make
Well, a lot
make
of times you have a little bit of time in between while things are machining and things of that nature. It's not like you're running and gunning 100% of the time.
No.
So putting something on there and letting it set up and cure and that sort of thing, it makes a difference. One thing that I have found is I use a lot of auto body glazing compound because it's like a single part system and it usually has acetone in it. You can put that on there and smear it in some of those cracks. It sets up and dries really quick, and then painting over the top of that helps a lot. So Bondo actually
Yeah,
has
Bono
has
spot
them
filler.
tubes that you can get on Amazon. So
That's
yeah,
what we
I,
use to plug all our bolt holes in the gating. No.
I buy that stuff in a
yeah,
tube about
Bondo
this big
glazing
around.
compound.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that spot
PPG
filler is great.
has some stuff. Yeah, it is. That's outstanding. Well, Bill, the when you're dealing with some of these stuff, do you ever when it was starting in the pattern shop at Sooner State Pattern Works in Blackwell, working for Rick Busfield, it was one of those things that he it was something he was just drilled into us. When you're building tooling, man, you got to put what he referred to as zippers in it. You got to be able to get the take the things apart and that sort of thing, because as he said, inevitably we're going to send this out to the foundry. The foundry's going to come back and say, no, we need to change this or that. And, make it to where we can actually take it back apart. We don't have to destroy it. We don't have to rebuild it or anything like that. I know you machine a lot of things integral, so that really wouldn't apply in that regard. But um, it seems like most people are getting away from a lot of that type of that was kind of a bench mentality for the most part. So most everything is digital anymore, solid modeling and CNC machining, because there's just not that many people that do bench pattern making. And besides that, it's much more economical, it seems, as a foundry guy, to get CNC machined or 3D printed tooling in that regard. So I'm sure you've seen some of that as well over your career.
Yeah, there it boils down to everything is the whole industry is involved in the precision that comes with the CNCing and stuff nowadays, and even in printing is amazingly accurate. So that that the involvement of the industry is really taken away from the traditional bench tooling. That the only time you really see that now is when, I'll refer to CA Lawton again. I mean, their niche market for the last 30 or 40 years, or since the 1800s for that matter, so in the inception, is building pattern tooling for 40, 50,000 pound castings. So that just big huge mahogany or pine patterns that are built in segments, and so you still see some of that, but it's very few and far between anymore, and
Yeah.
just everything is so
Yeah, I would think that would be something the old timers would hang their hat on. That you could give them a drawing. Next thing you know, they're out there with a 1/8 inch plywood, 4x8 plywood, and they're actually doing a full scale layout. That was the first thing we did. And I used to think, man, this is so dumb. Why are we making a full scale layout? We got the drawing for it and everything. But by the time you actually got done making a full scale layout of what the was on the drawing, man, you knew that job intimately, and it made it so much easier to do that. Yeah, it might take a few hours to knock that out and shade in where there was going to be machine stock and all that sort of stuff, and it really made it easy to throw a tape measure on there and your stack heights and where your lumber's going to be cut and where you could stair step it and save some material and all that sort of stuff when we were bench pattern making. I actually got to where I actually enjoyed doing the full scale layouts. It was a lot of fun.
When I in 91, that was near like the transition of the CAD becoming into the industry and everything still being built from a layout. So I had the happy medium there of my peers being old wood school pattern makers, that they could look at a print, and I don't even know how they come up with some of the stuff that they did, because the prints that were drawn in the 60s and 70s, and still you occasionally get prints that you work with that are from back then, but them guys had a vision that I was just in awe. I'm like, how do you even see that? So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. And making the old layouts, that taught you to have that vision. You maybe didn't even see that till you started laying it out on the board, and then all of a sudden things came to you. They're like, oh, now I see that. And so that's developmental, making your layout. That's was
Yeah,
a
for
huge,
sure.
huge part of why you did that.
Yeah, and not just that, but I mean, it made it real easy to grab your trams and you go over there and you'd have your center lines full scale, and you could actually get your stock and you could go do your segment pieces and get them all laid out, and make you a piece of masonite that you could lay on the wood and trace around it. All those little things all added up and stacked up to actually being able to be very efficient about what you're doing when you're getting your material. Because everything was laid out in 6-piece segments, gluing them up and offsetting all the seams and all that sort of stuff. That was huge.
Yeah, it's very neat that kids that are coming into the trade today, that it for have them actually see some of that, super educational for them, and
Yeah.
it's just neat to see, and some of the education that it took to even come up with that, and constant trigging, and you know that's not so much. Everything's the CAD's really taken away from a lot of that. You needed
It
to
has.
know a trig very solid background of trigonometry years ago. Now you don't really have to have so much of that, because the CAD and have the ability to.
Yeah.
All you need to know, it
Yeah.
needs 3 degrees or 2 degrees.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. I would think that probably I would assume that there are journeyman programs in foundries still today, or pattern shops that actually utilize some of that. Give a kid a drawing and say, hey, this is a drawing, then we're going to do a full scale layout. Make them do that. I think that would be great to have them do that. But also, I will say that there's probably very few people that could actually do that today, or that would do it, because SolidWorks and Autodesk and what's the other one? Not SketchUp, Onshape, which is made by some of the guys, the engineers that left SolidWorks. It's all cloud based. I tried it out again a week or so ago, and it actually is pretty solid. I used it about 6 or 8 years ago, and it sucked so bad, but it's way better today. It's amazing how things exponentially get better, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that Onshape is what my buddy who did SolidWorks ended up landing on. He loved it.
Yeah, no, and today it works pretty well. I've got a good friend that he uses that exclusively, and I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out again, because he was raving about it, and I tried it, and it was actually pretty good. So, and they have a maker license that's free for people that aren't using it for commercial purposes and things of that nature. So, something else to check out on Shape.
I noticed with Onshape, it was if it was a kind of a, if you did the free version, they own whatever you made, right? It was just it became their property. Is that there's other subscriptions that you can keep your drawings and
You can keep your drawings, but I mean, in the fine print, I'm guaranteeing you that your intellectual properties for some of that stuff is probably not yours. But I don't know that that's the case with Fusion or with Autodesk, Inventor, and things of that nature. But yeah, Onshape, I think that was the case before, but I don't know if that's today. I know that they probably ran into some issues, and then you run into issues with ITAR and some other things like that if you're dealing with some of the government regulations and things of that nature. So yeah, it's mitigating risk and ISO and that sort of thing. You definitely gotta pay attention to some of that stuff. So, Bill, I mean, what are some of the things that you do whenever you're getting set up for a job, as far as sending out tooling that has some sort of a little mistake or something like that? I mean, we always had Rick was adamant. He always had a QC checks and that sort of thing. We had to get it right the first time and on time. There was none of this back and forth. And granted, a lot of times, if you're a bench pattern maker, and you would have more of an issue because your hand sanding or your hand turning, that sort of thing. I've told the story before. I mean, Roger Meyer, man, he would go to check our work, and man, I hated that. I was nervous as all get out. It was like he lived to find mistakes on your work. It's like, oh Lord, does that really matter that fillet is off that a little bit right there? Oh, fix it. You'd have to fix it and repaint it, and oh Lord, those patterns always look like they had a car finish. I mean, it looked like a new car leaving there, and I'm thinking, then you go look at them in the foundry, how they treat them and paint silver release on them and everything else. Like, oh my God, we spent all that time, but that wasn't the point. The point was, do it right and provide them a part that looks like a new car when it gets there. That's what they're paying us for, and they want it to be right. They don't want a bunch of Bondo. They want it to be actual material. So yeah, that was something he drilled into us for sure, which was good.
Being a small system, that's a very hard thing, because when you're working in a larger system and there's dedicated employees that what their job is to pick that job apart to
Sure.
assure that it's 100%. So, because as a tooling designer, you're building it, you think you are correct. Your mindset is that, hey, here it is. This is good to go, and you're comfortable knowing the fact that your work is proper. And so, going through the process, seeing so being small, we have checks and balances that set forth for ourselves. That I just got an Excel sheet that I go and check off. So the beauty of the CAD, you can see the core laying inside of the core print and double checking the clearances. So there's a check sheet that I use to assure myself that I got the proper clearances on the cope and the drag, or if it's on a vertical Diza that's a ram or a swing. So we do that, and the quality assurance before it hits the machine is done prior to that through the CAD. And then once it's post machining, then now with the scanner is amazing because our layout would consist of just hand tools, calipers and height gauges and things of that matter, some hand tools to spot check some heights and some diameters and things like that to assure that we were proper. But now with the ability to scan that and overlay that to the model in a matter of an hour has been amazing. And it's hard. Not everything's just a diameter or a flat. Things are morphed. So how do you check that? You really
Hmm.
can't with a hand tool. A
Yeah.
CMM you certainly could, but so now the ability with the scanner to overlay that to the CAD data has been tremendous, and to provide our customers with the heat maps and the quality assurance of their tools, been getting some very, very nice compliments.
Yeah. It's very nice to be able to see that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God. It's assuring. It helps you sleep at night.
Yep. For sure. Yep. You're doing it right the first time, and providing them with a great service in the process. So no, that's awesome. That technology should be used everywhere for sure.
Just
So
received a very nice compliment on Tuesday from a new customer. Like, it's the second we get done here. We take a picture of the tooling for our own archiving, but then I forward that tooling pictures onto the customer along with the heat maps and provide that to them, so they don't, when that tooling gets to them, they don't got to take their own time to get the camera out, take a picture of it before it goes into the machine.
sure.
So I get some very nice compliments in regards to providing some just simple things like that, that takes the work away from having to do it. And now with the heat mapping, they just said, Bill, this is amazing that you're providing these tooling picks and the heat maps for our tooling here. So, and I've took it as they are not currently receiving a service like that. So it was very comforting to know that a two-man pattern shop's providing something that they are not receiving from the large pattern shops that are our competition.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you consider that probably one of the most rewarding parts of the work that you guys do is just the seeing the customer, really, really appreciating the types of services that you fill the niche for?
Oh my God, it's amazing. And you're trying to set the bar already, and then when they're kind enough to share things like that, and so then you try to even raise the bar even higher for yourself,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
it's it it's escalates. And I mean it's a great feeling. That's the beauty of being in business, is to earn them relationships and build them relationships like that. It's awesome.
So thinking about it, I mean, the people that are listening to this podcast, a lot of times they're Foundry guys. I mean, we're in a really tight niche market with Foundry Talk podcast. There's not a lot of tremendous amount of mass of people listening to this. So a lot of times there are people that have found us that are in the Foundry business. They might be on the floor, they might be working in the pattern shop, things of that nature. Maybe they're just getting their feet wet. They have never worked in a full blown pattern shop or anything like that. What skills would you say that if somebody really wants to step their game up and they want to be better, they want to move forward, or maybe they want to aspire to start their own pattern shop or to machining or anything like that. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to them? What would they need to prioritize to really to win at this business?
Number one, don't be scared. Can't, there's so many ups and downs of starting a business, and so to say that you're not going to have any downs, absolutely you are, but don't be scared of it. Take it head on. Um, just start working and collaborating with your customers as best that you can, and them relationships get built fairly quickly, and And once you start having that relationship with them, and that word of mouth is a powerful thing. And so that goes right along with that, providing them simple equalities, and that really goes a long way. I've never one single, I'm not much of a cold call person. I've never made one single call in 8 years because I'm not that type of person. Foundries out there that everybody's got, contact us on their email. So I've approached my initial and getting my feet into the industry through just contacting foundries via their website, and just giving them a brief summary of my background and our capabilities, and that way, and you might get one person out of 20 that you contact that actually respond to you, and that's all you need is that one. And
Right.
then
Looking for the one.
yep.
Yep.
And so then it just keep building upon that.
Yeah, that makes sense. We used to Dave Keiss and I at CFM. He was the president of CFM when I worked there, and we would do industrial maintenance trade shows, kind of little regional small trade shows. And the one thing that our goal for the year, I mean, we would do like 4 to 6 of these industrial maintenance trade shows. And the thought was, well, if we find that the maintenance people that are actually fixing the equipment that is old and aging, and the OEMs don't replace it, or they don't have replacement parts or anything else anymore, we can provide them with a custom casting to fix a problem that they've got and be problem solving for them. And we were looking for one good customer a season, a year, that we were doing those trade shows. And I knock on wood, there's actually customers that they still have today at CFM that we got because of those trade shows. So yeah, doing what you're saying is important digitally or at an actual meet and greet face to face trade show as well. So yeah, good for you, and kudos for you. Matter of fact, that's how you and I actually met. I don't remember if you remember or not, but you'd sent me an email, and we were needing some tooling at the time. Lead times were too high from other pattern shops at the time, real busy. You were looking for work, and you actually ended up doing, I don't know, half a dozen different jobs for me, and when I was in Houston. And when I got the first job, I was like, "Holy moly, this is okay. This is pretty good." But what I will say is, there's good pattern makers or there's bad pattern makers, and I've seen both. But most of the time, it has to do a lot of times with lead time, how fast, and not just saying that you can get it done fast, but actually delivering. And same thing with castings as well in the foundry and business. So kudos for you for that.
Thanks. That's one industry standard that will never go away. It's how fast can you get it to us, and how cheap can you do it? So
Yeah, yeah. What's the three things is it's price, quality, and delivery. And if you don't have quality, it doesn't matter what the price is. And if you deliver a crappy part quick, it still doesn't matter. So
yep.
those three things, those that the kind of the trident of being successful in any business, makes a huge difference.
It's and that your customer base is willing to work with you. Everybody gets busy, and not everybody's on time. You try your best to put your best foot forward, and you are 95% of the time or higher on time, but you do get, you might have a spoof or something along the way where you might get you a little setback for whatever reason. But just collaborating with your customers so they can get that on the schedule appropriately, and they're just working with them, and everything comes out in the wash.
Sure. I think communication is probably the biggest key, making sure that everybody's on the same page, and rather than, get ahead of it rather than after the fact. Your deadline is already passed. Next thing you know, they're reaching out to you. That's the wrong type. You need to be communicating with them before you get to that point.
The tariff and stuff, everybody's so nervous of at the end of this last year, the last quarter, and coming into the election year, the industry it slowed down a lot, which only goes without saying. It always does in an election year, but um, and it took near till better part of April for the economy to build some trust and speed again. And boy, it just blew up from April on till the end of the year was amazing, and it's going strong. The foundry industry is very strong right now.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's good. I think 2026 is going to be a great year for the foundry business for sure. Metal casters, I think worldwide personally, but you're just seeing a lot of different signs of that. So no, that I think I concur with that wholeheartedly.
And when COVID broke out, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to the foundry industry, in my opinion, because some of the large corporations were all over in Thailand and overseas and having their castings shipped into there. Well, then when COVID broke out and they couldn't get the castings, they're all sitting out at sea for 6 months at a time before they could even get them in. That reverted, and all the casting started coming, all the casting work, they started bringing their tooling back into the States. So that was a blessing in disguise for the foundry industry, because it was just unbelievable, the volume of work that come from all that. And it's been strong since. But now with the tariffing going on, you're seeing some of the same effects going on, just because the cost of importing product back into the state here is forcing some of the big corporations to, take a different look at, and hey, how come why don't we just bring our castings back into the states here where it belongs? And it's good. It's good in my eyes, I think.
That's great perspective for sure. Well, Bill, is there anything that you'd want to would are you looking for any help, or anybody that hears the podcast and they're in your area, or they're looking to relocate or anything like that? Are you guys looking for somebody for the right individuals, or anything like that?
Absolutely. You're always looking to grow. We've taken a couple steps at it, and we need to. With the volume of work that's coming here, we need people to. It takes people to grow. You can't grow with two people. So
Sure. Yeah.
absolutely finding somebody that has 10 years experience in the trade at least, so they are capable of being small. They got to be capable of taking it from inception all the way to the pallet. So
Yep.
for shipping. So to find somebody of that nature would be amazing. But we're willing to train the right individual.
Well,
Okay.
Bill, maybe you need to start thinking about having more kids.
Grandkids, more grandkids.
56, so I'm past that point. I got a grandson, so hopefully he decides to come hang out with Grandpa
I bet he will.
one day.
I bet so.
I have
That's awesome.
I have 3 sons, and they all worked in the shop here along the way. But this is, they didn't want to let them choose what they want to do for their career and their life, not what fuels mine. So they all chose not to hang out with Dad, and that's okay too.
Well, and again, it takes a special individual to be a pattern maker, in my opinion. It's not for the faint of heart. You got to see things in reverse. There's all these nuances to it. But once you get to a level like what you're at, and once you put in the time, it's a great career to have. And there's always going to be a need for it for sure. Even with 3D additive manufacturing and all the things that come along with it, the technologies that have changed, the solid modeling, everything else, you still need to have somebody that can run the machine and that sort of thing. AI is coming. We know it is. Humanoid robots, all those sort of things, heavy lifting and doing mundane jobs and dangerous jobs and things of that nature. I can't wait for us to be able to pre-order our first humanoid robot for the foundry, just to have our valuable employees that work for us at KN Manufacturing, that they can actually do other jobs. And it's not for us to get rid of employees. It's to be able to do things, take the mundane things, grinding and being on the furnace deck and things of those natures, those more dangerous positions in the facility, and utilizing their human intelligence in a totally different manner I think we're gonna marry it in a way that is gonna make a lot of sense. And people that embrace AI and the humanoid robots and the things of that nature, I think it's gonna be it's gonna allow people with your expertise and the Foundry business to be able to utilize those humanoid robots in a capacity that they're doing the heavy lifting and the backbreaking stuff, where you can use your brain and do the things that you're agile and really good with, marrying it with the AI. I think it's going to be a huge benefit for sure.
Well, we've seen that progress largely over the last 20 years, particularly, I'll just use Wapaka Foundry, the large redundancies of the grinding and, the automatic grinding. And so now instead of it being a fixed robot, a fixed robotic arm doing the grinding, you'll actually have a robot that's capable of walking to do it. It's kind of
Sure.
crazy.
Well, not just that, but I mean the aspect of the efficiencies and the lead times getting shorter and things of that nature. Because if you have autonomous humanoid robots that are there 24/7 taking care of certain things, and yeah, it's going to take humans to be able to line that sort of things out and have an idea what needs to happen. You can't just say, oh yeah, I got a humanoid robot, and they're yeah, artificial intelligence is going to get smarter, but you're still going to need to have human intervention. And I mean, somebody's the sales and the things that you do, the marketing, that sort of thing, marrying that with AI and everything else, I think it's going to be a great thing for sure. Something definitely not to fear by any means in manufacturing. I'm looking forward to it.
It's still a computer. It's got to be taught.
It does, certainly does, and you got to have somebody that's got the intelligence and know what to do, to program it and let it know what to do. So yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. Well, how do people get a hold of you, Bill? I almost called you Paul. I have no idea where that came from.
That's my father's name, so I'd have been okay with that.
Okay.
My cell phone and our landline is on our website and our
Okay.
email information. So if anyone would care to contact us, please go on our website. That's protecpattern.com. We're easily reached there. So
Okay.
any
You're reach on LinkedIn as well.
yep. We're
Are you Bill Crouse on LinkedIn, or
no,
is it William Crouse?
William Crouse, yep, on LinkedIn. I really enjoy LinkedIn. That's been a great tool to just interact and connect with people and businesses, and have gained several customers through that. So that's a very powerful tool. We do have our own Facebook page too as well, Protect Pattern. So we got that. No
Okay.
Instagram. I think we do have an Instagram page. My son does that for us, so but he doesn't monitor that all that well. So I'm
There
not
you go.
huge on Instagram, but we do have a page. I just don't place anything on it.
All right. That works. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you taking the time to carve out this morning, and being a small shop, I know it's valuable time, and so it means a lot. I think it's good information. Good people get to know who you are, what you guys do, especially being a small mom and pop shop. I think that's awesome. So thank you for doing that. Tell Carla we said hi, or we missed her. We'd much rather look at her than look at you, but that's okay.
Well,
You
thanks
gotta,
thanks for having me on here. It was a lot of fun.
oh, thanks. Hey, you got a good looking hat on there. What is that? What is that logo on there?
Being in manufacturing, the stainless steel foundry out of Lufkin, Texas. Great friend of mine owns that and was kind enough to share that hat with me. And so I wear it with pride.
Well, you make it look good.
All right. Well, Bill, well, thank you so
That-
much. Look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, thanks, Barry. See you, Nate.
You bet.
Yep, bye.
Talk to you soon.
Yep, bye.
Bye-bye.